Love. Some would say it took a backseat when the pandemic forced us apart. As a family-run and proudly Canadian-owned company, Charm Diamond Centers saw the need to bring us together with tales of love and created the Canadian Love Map podcast. Since then, we've shared hundreds of real, uplifting stories that prove love conquers all. So thank you for listening. We couldn't do it without you. And remember, love starts here.
This is a true Canadian love story.
We were meant to be together.
I can't imagine my life without you.
Honestly, he's the light of my life.
It's nice to be in that tractor beam of love.
I'm her biggest fan.
I think I knew I'd lost my heart again.
I knew I wanted a marriage like that.
Difficult roads can lead to very beautiful destinations.
Well, love is the most important thing.
I appreciate your openness to go through this life and always say yes. And I appreciate that you love my kind of crazy and that I love your kind of uniqueness as well. And I don't think I would want to go through this with anybody else.
Don't think, eh? Well, it's almost 65% of the time. So nice.
Hi, I'm Nancy Regan. This week's love story belongs to Jen and Chris from Toronto. They came together in the most Canadian of ways, in an ice storm. What was shaping up to be a tragic tale of interrupted travel became a story they've been joyfully telling for 18 years. It's got everything a great story should have: tears, beers, and a happy ending. This is the Canadian Love Map. Hi, Jen and Chris.
Hi.
Hello.
So great to talk to you. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to talk to you too, Nancy.
Yeah, for sure. Super fun.
You guys are gamers. And before we talk about how you met, which is a very cool part of your story, I want you to take us to your lives at the time you met. So tell me about what was going on in your life, each of you, at the time.
Okay, so I'm from Winnipeg originally and had just moved to Toronto about just about a year before Chris and I met. The reason I moved from Winnipeg was actually I had called off a wedding and needed to get the heck
Your
out of
wedding, not just any wedding. Your wedding.
I called off a wedding, my wedding, because it didn't feel right, and decided that I need to get out of Winnipeg and start fresh, and do something bold. And so had handed my resume to two different clients, and it was either going to be Calgary, Toronto. Ended up getting a job opportunity in Toronto and moved here. The difficulty is it was like full on Sex and the Single Girl, and every single date that I had had up until the time that Chris and I met was like the most disastrous date possible. It was fodder for a chapter book on how not to do dates in a big city. Because it was just like, you know, a guy who wanted to smell my feet and another guy who it was just weird stuff. You know, it was the Lava Life days and it was bad. So right before Chris and I met, I had sworn off men, and I was like, listen, if I decide that eventually I want to have a baby, I'll get a turkey baster and a good friend. I really, really don't need to have a relationship. I am done like dinner with dating, because it just was not working out for me. And I was about 29 at the time when I got to the airport. So that was me. I was working in marketing and hanging out in Toronto with my single friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I've got this image of a runaway bride a la Julia Roberts with a turkey baster in one hand.
I'm totally ready.
Chris, draw us a picture of your
Wow.
life.
Yeah, I got to top that. Okay. I was living my best life. No, it was a great time for me. I was working coast to coast. So I traveled all across Canada, and I hadn't sworn off women per se, but I had never shown much of an interest in a long-term relationship goal. It was great. I had great friends who were making that choice, but it just really wasn't for me. I hadn't met the right person. And I could be personality driven on my part. I was actually told once that I was a passable lover and a terrible boyfriend. And I'm like, that I can live with that. That's absolutely honest. I'm totally good with that. Just above a C+. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, so I was living a great time. I had a great group of friends and full of travel, and then Jen came along and changed it all.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's where you meet. Now, Jen, you had a best friend who was doing a little better in her love life
Yeah,
and decided to take the plunge and was getting married.
that's right.
I guess little did you know that your whole life was going to change because of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah, and she actually for the longest time kept saying, "You're welcome, you're welcome." That day that Chris and I met actually was, and it's funny because we actually now hold a rule that we never get our tires changed back to our summer tires until after April the 4th, because it was April 4th here in Toronto. There was an ice storm, like a freak ice storm. And I guess the Toronto airport at that point in time had decided that they no longer needed de-icing fluid because we were, fine for the rest of the season. And so they basically had said to everybody, we have run out of de-icing fluid. We're waiting for it to come from either Ottawa or Chicago. All flights are delayed. I was there about 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning and had already been told that my first flight had been postponed. So I was kind of teary. I was really homesick. And it was one of those, I was here in Toronto going, is this the right decision for me? Like, is this the best idea? Should I maybe go back? I never want to be that one that sort of was like, oh, I wasn't successful in the big city. But so I have all the kinds of emotions, but I decided to go to the Second City Lounge to have breakfast and have a good cry. And Chris, you got there what time?
My flight was supposed to be at 11, and I actually got checked in. And then they're like, yeah, you got to come get your bags again. So down to the baggage department. Literally every flight that's coming in, plus the returns from all the flights that weren't going out, were all come. Like, they didn't even label the carousels anymore. They wanted to just kind of sign up that said, screw it, good luck. So I got my bags, and then I had checked to get a flight out. I was trying to get to Vancouver. So I asked my agent if there was a flight that was going to continue on through internationally, and there was one that was supposed to continue on later on. So I figured if they're going to get a plane through, it's going to be that plane. So book me on that. It's, 9 or 9:30 it leaves. So I have now 9 hours and a corporate credit card. So I go to the Second City Lounge. Who doesn't like to laugh? Maybe a little lunch.
So tell me, what is the Second City Lounge? It's in the airport?
It's not even there anymore. It was Terminal 2 back in the day. And it was kind of like, the place that you'd go for breakfast. Or
they had a smoking lounge?
They did have a smoking lounge. And back then it was
awful. Was there comedy?
No, there's pictures of John Candy on the wall. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But I actually met Joe Flaherty that morning, which is the weirdest thing because he is a Second City cast member. And I'm like, I know you. And he signed something like a napkin or something. Because I remember that was such a randomly weird fact about here crying in my scrambled eggs. And there's this actual guy from Second City beside me. So that was kind of funny, but I was sitting there crying in my eggs, and this guy looks over and goes, "Hey, you're ruining our buzz. You gotta stop crying, man."
Well, because you show up and there's a camaraderie to the people sitting in the smoking area because it's tight and you have to share tables. So I was like, "Hey, where aren't you going today?" And there was a guy who wasn't going to Washington to see his girlfriend, a guy who wasn't getting home to the East Coast. And I'm like, "Great, well, we're not getting anywhere together. How about a beer?" So that kind of how it started. And then this girl was over in the corner with curly hair and soggy eggs, and she was really bringing it down a little bit. So I'm like, "Hey, come on over. What's your name? Where aren't you going?" "I'm Jen, and I'm not going to Winnipeg." "Okay, it's all right.
My friend's wedding. I'm just really homesick, and so I think it took me about a good 20 minutes, and then all the tears were gone, and we were laughing hysterically. Like, we just kind of connected really quickly with this whole group of people that were characters, all not going anywhere as well. And it was really funny, like people were coming in and we were almost like became the entertaining hosts of people sort of moving in and out of canceled flights and coming for a beer and whatever. And they were like, "How long have you guys been together?" And we looked at each other as we literally just met 45 minutes ago, but we did look at each other once and said, like, "Hey," I think he said to me, "Hey, I feel like I've known you forever."
Oh, it was my best line. That's way better than a C+ line, I'll tell you that. Yeah, no,
and
it
she
really
fell for it.
I know, right?
Hook, line, and sinker. Didn't stand a chance. No, it was really odd. I had never experienced that familiarity, I guess, with another person. So it was really just, wow, this is totally kind of cool. And it really wasn't about the relationship at the time. It was just really that kind of warm feeling you get when you mesh with somebody.
Yeah. And it was funny. Like, I was sort of, Chris, a little bit older than I am, but I sort of said, "What's wrong with you? How come you haven't gotten married or been in a relationship or anything?" And he said, just never found the right person and I don't want to settle. And not settling was kind of the vibe of why I had ended that previous relationship, is that I felt it didn't feel like that romantic, robust love of my life. It felt like I was going to be settling. And so when Chris said that, I just thought, oh, there's a sign here. This is someone who's speaking my jam.
Speaking love language.
Yeah. So
I think there's also a sign in that he didn't take offense when you led with what's wrong with you.
Exactly.
It's probably not the first time I'd heard it. No, it was a fair question, right? Like a lot of people moving through life. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah,
well, it was a very direct question.
It was.
No beating it. And you know what? That's going to permeate our entire relationship. We don't play games. There's not wait to see if I should 3 days to call or whatever it was.
Yeah.
None of that crap. Like, listen, you want to talk to me? Talk to me.
Yeah,
you need something?
That was so
just ask.
Refreshing. That was so good. Like Chris said, like, let's not play games. Let's just, if you want to text me, text me. I thought, oh, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've ever heard. Are you being serious? Like
it's a trick.
It's a trick. It's a trick.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're
great.
jumping ahead. So
No,
slow down.
We haven't even left the
Slow
lounge
down. This podcast is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, Canada's largest family-owned jewelry store. They are proud to be putting love on the map, and the staff at Charm Diamond Centers are thrilled to be a part of your love story too. So visit charmdiamondcenters.com or one of your local stores. Love starts here. So not only were you going to your best friend's wedding, Jen, but you had an important role.
Yeah, I was supposed to be the master of ceremonies. So that was my role in the wedding, was I was going to be there. And, it got to the point where I had chosen not to be, I wasn't part of the bridal party. Because back then it was way too expensive for me to go back and forth for all of the things. But I was really excited to be MC at her wedding. And there was a lot of teary phone calls throughout the day, as, every couple of hours, my flight that was postponed to 1 got, postponed. And then my 1 to 3:00 and then 5:00. And it was the 5:00 flight that, finally it said canceled. Like it went from postponed to being canceled. And I was just this bawling mess out in where the bathrooms are from where the lounge was. And Chris happens to come along and he says, hey, what's going on? I'm like,
I thought we fixed this.
I thought this is good. We're okay. And I said, it's canceled. Like I can't, because I was trying to figure out, could I take the train? Could I drive? Because there was such a feeling of fleetingness that I was going through. And he said, well, hold on a sec. The fat lady hasn't sung yet. Let's go talk to somebody. I said, do you see that lineup at Air Canada? I think there was like 400 people deep trying to rebook. And Chris looks over, and this is why I love his brain so much, is like when he asked what flight was going international, to me, nobody thinks that way, right? As far as logistically what would make sense. And he says, well, why don't we go to Rapid Air? They have the same computers, and there's a lady over there that nobody's talking to. I was like, that makes so much sense. So we go over and Chris says, hi, what's your name? And she says, Lisa. And he says, Lisa, I need to ask you a question. What would you do to get to your best friend's wedding? And she pretty much said, she goes,
well, I guess I'd do pretty much anything. I'm like, great, Lisa, that's the mindset. How do we get, good. Well, wait, it's like, how do we get Jennifer to Winnipeg? And she's like, we're not flying to Winnipeg. I said, Lisa, best friend's wedding. I'm on a flight to Vancouver. It's still on the board. She's like,
actually, first she said, we don't do that at Air Canada.
No, not yet. So she's like, we could fly her to Winnipeg or to Vancouver on my flight and then fly her back to Winnipeg. Oh, we don't do overflights. Lisa, best friend's wedding.
Yeah.
She's like, fine. Well, there's room on the flight and we could get her back on the red eye kind of thing. It's to Edmonton landing just like 11 or whatever it was. Yeah. And I'm like, and she's like, and there's a seat next to you.
Or I think that you can seem to have a connection.
And so she booked it.
Come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I'm stunned. Like I'm standing there going, is this happening? What is going on here? And so she had me going to Vancouver, back to Edmonton, having a quick stop over Edmonton, back to Winnipeg to get there within an hour before the wedding is supposed to be happening. So at this point, I'm like, are you kidding me? I said, if this happens, I'm going to kiss you. He goes, girl, you wanted to kiss me the minute you met me. And I was just sitting here going, oh, like what his
quiet self-confidence is what that is. That's quiet self-confidence. Yeah.
That's not a C+. That's an A+.
Oh, it is. Hey, listen, even a blind cat finds a mouse every once in a while.
So we went back to the lounge and we decided now we're in celebratory mood. Now we're like, oh my God, this is actually happening. I'm getting on a flight. I can't believe this. And everybody we'd made friends with, then by this time, like the majority of the airport had sort of like, it's almost like we were the only last man standing. Everyone else had given up and every flight was canceled. So they went to see if they could get flights. And one was going to go propose to his girlfriend and he got on a flight. The other one was an ice road trucker who'd been away for 4 months or 5 months from his family. He got a flight. So it was a joyous occasion by the time, we're sitting in the lounge at that point in time. And so when we were trying to pass through security, now Chris is like, no, don't mess this up because now we actually have to get on
So
the
3
plane.
hours pass, again, corporate credit card and rather suspect tracking abilities when it came to expenditures. So Jen is in fine form now. And it's like, okay, you got to get through security on the plane because they can say no. And this would all be very funny, but very sad at the same time. So we straighten her up when we get through and we're waiting to board. And it's like, okay, I think we got this. And we sit down.
We breathe
a little bit, kind of buckle in.
And then Chris gives me like that kiss. Like he grabs my face and we're just starting to take off. And he holds my face and he gives me this kiss that lasts until we're at cruising altitude. And it is like...
Yeah. Humblest apologies to the guy in seat C.
Yeah, poor guy.
He did not need to see that. That's okay.
He was then party of like 5 hours of getting to know each other with the chemistry and tension that has been for, being together and hanging out all day. I think I was like, I had a leg on his lap or like the poor guy.
Kissed the lips right off my face.
I did. But the funny thing is before we left, Chris had phoned a friend of his who is a Newfoundlander. And as we all know in the beautiful country of Canada, how generous Newfoundlanders are, who we affectionately call the Noof. And said, I have a friend. Can she come in, like crash at your place for a couple of hours? Because she just needs to sleep for a little bit. And then she's got to get back on another plane. So by the time we get to Vancouver, it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, Vancouver time, and probably the 4 a.m. Toronto time. And I was like literally been up for almost 24 hours and having a very celebratory mindset for the last half of the day. So I was dying. And we get to our friend Sean's place and he's got charcuterie out. He's changed the sheets. He's got like, yeah. But he also...
Single guy in Vancouver charcuterie. It's like he opened a tin of tuna or something like that. But it was still very kind.
He had some blocks
very
of cheese.
Couple hot dogs.
Yeah, it was so good. But the funny thing was he also didn't have a lot of hair. And my hair is wildly curly. And so I went to go have a shower and he had like a shampoo that ultimately then didn't have a brush either. So I had no brush and had just shampooed my hair. So if any woman knows or any man knows what it's like, if you have really long, thick, curly, knotty hair, that just turned into essentially a cluster swamp's nest that then sat in a ponytail on top of my head for the rest of the duration of travel, which was fantastic. And then Chris stayed up and got me back towards the airport. I got to the airport and then got to Edmonton and was so desperately not wanting to fall asleep waiting to get on the plane. But when I got on the plane, I was at the very last row right in front of the washrooms and had shared with my seatmate this whole endeavor of what happened. And of course, he was gossiping to the flight attendants. And I said to the flight attendants, I know this is such a big thing to ask, but I literally have less than an hour to trying to get to my friend's wedding. Is there any chance that I could move up to the front? And they're like, oh, it's totally full capacity. And I said, is there any chance, just help me out here? And they said, okay, we're going to leave your bag at the front. So it'll be, at seat 1A. And you can go before the thing dings, like before you have the ding in the, the plane. And so I'm getting ready. I'm looking for them to give me the nod. We land and I'm sort of like, give me the nod, give me the nod. So they finally give me the nod and I get up and I start running towards the front of the plane. And of course it dings and everybody clambers up. But what had happened was this guy was such a chatty Cathy that he told the entire plane what had happened essentially, or it had gone, sort of by telephone. I went viral on the plane and everyone's like, he says, run, Jen, run. She's got to get to her friend's wedding. And everybody parted like the Red Sea. And suddenly I was actually able to get up the aisle, which to me is shocking that in a plane, somebody actually moved out of the way for you to get to the front, right? So I got my bag and I ran out down the escalators in the airport. And I'm literally saying to my mom, start the car. Oh my God, we're going to make it. I think this is about less than an hour. But because my hair, everything, I was a hot mess, right? I hadn't properly showered or changed clothes in 24 hours. I had this hair. So we went to my hairdresser's because he's like, I can make magic happen. So he washes my hair. I'm literally getting changed in his seat. He's been a family friend for 1,000 years and is fabulous. And he's doing my hair to make something good of it while my mom's putting on pantyhose and a dress. And my dad is outside waiting like this is his life's work to get me to this wedding on time. And so literally he's, revving the engine 20 minutes before I'm even ready. And I go running in to get the car. He gets me to the wedding to the point that when we get to the wedding, he comes up and it's like a screeching halt, like it's like a, kind of thing. And at that point, my friend who's about to walk down the aisle stops and sees me because she hears the screeching tires. And her husband to be thinks that she's totally maybe having second thoughts because she's looking outside the door, like she's not looking down the aisle. So we embrace, like I come running in, we embrace. I'm still like a hot mess because nothing's together, but it is what it is. And then I go to sit down, and who do I end up sitting down beside but my ex-fiance, which was a whole another kit and caboodle of awkwardness and what have you. But
Jen, wait, this is the fiance who you left at the altar.
Yes.
Okay.
Awkward.
All righty.
It was
awkward.
Yeah. It was really awkward. But you know what? It was okay. It was funny because I had a moment where I had thought maybe I'd made a mistake and that maybe, he was the right one. And then as soon as it was almost like divine intervention because suddenly Chris coming in when I was having this terrible sort of relationship role going on here in Toronto. And it was like, and then I sort of sat beside him and went, no, this is not meant to be. What just happened is totally meant to be. And so Chris actually was gone for another month, right?
So were you?
Yeah, because I came back from the wedding and I went traveling to Scotland and Ireland and we were keeping in touch via Hotmail, I think it was back in the day.
I bet it was Hotmail.
Oh yeah, I don't even think it was Gmail yet. But I did say, I'm just wondering how you feel about maybe a second date kind of thing. And Chris said, I'm coming straight from the airport when I get back and we're having a second date. So that was pretty cool because that was pretty solidifying. I think we met April the 4th and our second date was May the 8th, right?
Yeah, I think so. I was working in Vancouver for a bunch when Jen was traveling. And when I got back, I just hopped in a cab. See, I didn't know. I thought this just was a nice thing. Hey, there's Jen. Let's have that date. And Jen's like, he's coming straight from the airport. He's been gone for a month. Oh, my God, he must really like me. So I show up at her door. She opens the door and just babbles like, oh, my God, it's so good to see you. Okay, you're so and it's so good. Did I say good to see you? It's good to see you. And then I just took her face and I kissed her to shut her up. And apparently that was the right gesture, too. Another good move.
And what did you say?
I said, you talk too much.
Oh, I love your candor.
Oh, it's got to be truthful. There's so much humor in the truth. Anyhow, so that's how it really started. And then from then it was literally whirlwind.
You helped me move.
I helped you move. We had a nice party.
Yeah, we went to it. We had a tacky tourist party for, I just moved in with a new roommate. And so Chris was floored that I had not rented a U-Haul. And
oh, yeah. So the difference
here in Toronto, you don't do that, right?
Yeah. 2 days before moving, she doesn't have a truck built. Now in Winnipeg, that's fine. In Toronto, you need a little more lead time than that. So I leveraged it up and find a moving truck. And then the only people who show up to move her are me, this really gangly girlfriend of hers, and this other guy who she dated. And this poor guy was tiny. I'm like, I don't care. Grab the couch. Let's go. Anyhow, so we moved Jen in, and
then you could have never left. You sort of.
I really did. I kind of carved my own, got my own drawer, and that was it for me.
And then we actually got engaged July the 19th. So within 3 months of meeting, we went to a James Taylor concert, and I said this was a magical night, and he said, no, what would be magical is if you did the honor of being my wife, and that was it 18 years ago. If you can believe.
I also can tell just from talking to you for this amount of time that you are both gamers.
Yeah.
You seem to have that adventurous spirit in common.
Yep.
Is there one of you that drives that bus more, or do you both just really?
Yeah, I'm the yes man. I can take it along. Hey, you know what? We're climbing Kilimanjaro for my 40th birthday and our 10th anniversary. Okay. Do I get boots? I don't know. You know what? I was really
thinking.
Did that
happen?
Oh, yeah.
Did you do that?
Happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Chris is I think he understands that I am a bit of a wild spirit, right? I love kind of the freedom of adventure. He's always been a traveler as well. So we really had the good fortune of getting along really well with that. But we've traveled for the most part, never having anything booked. Like we'll have the first night booked and then we'll just see where the day takes us and see where we end up. And for the most part, I'd say there was maybe one or two incidents where
it's never not worked out eventually. It's never been a total and complete. And listen, the best stories are about the times that it was a challenge.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So like I actually had a really important person to me pass in 2015, and it floored me. It took me out. Like I probably would say that was the one time that I definitely understood what depression felt like. But I started also really feeling like we had this big plan that someday we were going to travel the world, and we weren't doing it. We kept pushing it, saying, well, in 5 years we'll do it. In 5 years we'll do it.
Yeah, when the money's right. When is the money
Nothing's
right?
ever right. So we kind of just went with tomorrow. It's Timothy. Oh gosh, what's his name? It's the guy who does the 4-Hour Work Week. Talks about tomorrow
Ferriss.
can easily become. That's right, Tim Ferriss. And he talks about tomorrow can easily become never, and that became our mantra. And we just decided that we were going to put all our stuff in storage and take our kids and travel the world. And Chris said yes. So I feel like we've been very lucky to have the kind of respectful relationship that just is open and game to doing, to your point, whatever it is that is important to the other. I don't think there's ever anything that the cottage is really important to Chris. And I think we really endeavor to try and be out in nature as much as we can and just be grateful for what we've got. Right?
Okay, so this is a big question. I can't wait to hear your answers. Chris, what do you love most about Jen?
I like her laugh lines just because there's so much tied to it. She spent so much time trying not to, I got to get sunscreen on her makeup. And I remember her just sitting on the beach in Thailand and just, her hair was caked with salt from the sea. And she's got these tan lines with the laugh lines there. And I mean, that's literally proof of a life well lived. So I love her laugh. I love her spirit, her endeavor. I love her to bits. I'm going to keep her. I'd renew the lease 10 more years.
Yeah. We always have a lease negotiation that every 10 years we say, okay, we're going to renew this lease for 10 more years. Does it sound like it's worth it? And we then usually decide yes.
There you go. A couple of renegotiations, but yeah, generally how it goes.
I like it.
What about you? What do you love about me best?
Oh, what do I love about Chris? His dry sense of humor. It's funny. Someone was asking me if we had this was a movie, who would play him, and I said, oh, it's like a Ryan Reynolds. That's the kind of the dry sense of humor is, as you can see, is always been.
Brad Pitt is available for the answer too, by the way. Just saying.
And I think the fact is that we will always feel like Chris is kind of I'm trying to think of the right word. He will take care of us. He is always going to be that person that within our family is it's a heavy task to carry, but he is the person that we know will always be the protector, be the guardian, be the entertainer, be the cook, be the he just will always be there. And I think that's something that I feel he's so competent and so capable that it's just that anytime we're trying to figure something out, he figures it out, including the kids' homework, which I'm so grateful that I don't really get involved in because, oh my God, I hate grade 9 new math. It's the worst thing ever.
Oh, I'm with you on that one.
Oh, it sucks.
I'm with you. One last thing. I would like you both to deliver a Valentine's message to your partner, even though they're sitting right beside you. Lean into the mic and deliver.
You're not going to like this. This is going to wreck all the work that we've done.
You're going to laugh.
You're not going to. This is not going to go the way you think. Okay.
Are you going to set up? Are you going to tell the truth?
No,
though?
Yeah, I'm telling the truth.
All right.
Look me in the eyes.
I'm looking at you with the eyes.
I will tell you the same thing I tell you every Valentine's Day. This is an absolute joke of a holiday. I don't need one day to tell you how much I love you. I attempt to show it every day in any small or grandiose gesture. That is Valentine's Day. not just the 14th of February.
Oh my God. Okay, that was a good setup. Honestly, I'm impressed with you.
Yours to me now, Jen.
Okay, because I'm feeling on the spot. I have to tell you, Nancy, that Chris bought a Valentine's Day card that he just gives me the same Valentine's Day card every year because he doesn't believe in Valentine's Day. So he just goes, here you go. And so like we learned not even to write on the envelope. We just stick it back in and it's turned into a big joke between us as far as
so maybe humor is a great part of love.
Yes. Yeah. My Valentine's message to you is I appreciate your openness to go through this life and always say yes. And I appreciate that you love my kind of crazy and that I love your kind of uniqueness as well. And I don't think I would want to go through this with anybody else.
Don't think, eh? It's almost 65% of the time. So nice. So nice. So nice. Wow, it's lukewarm.
Oh,
that's beautiful. I love you too.
Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Happy Valentine's
Happy Valentine's
Day
to you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Canadian Love Map. If you love us, please subscribe and share. We'll be back next week with another love story to add to the map. This podcast is presented and made possible by Charm Diamond Centers. It's hosted by me, Nancy Regan, and is produced and distributed by Podstarter.
This
has been
a Podstarter
production.